All right.
Okay. I can hear
Just
you
got
really
the
well.
app.
Can you hear me good?
Yes, this is perfect.
Awesome. We're also live already. I just tested it.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So, here we go.
First YouTube live. Not for you, but
First,
for me.
for me as well. I did this. Um,
Some time ago, I guess.
I did this like probably when we were in Mexico. I did one, like very short one. But this is a long time ago. I was young still. So, as we talked about it, I just have. I mean, we just want to basically give our secrets away.
Exactly.
Um,
Everything for free.
exactly. Just a little bit of advice for the young emerging composer or someone who's maybe a little stuck in their career as a composer, because I for one definitely know what that feels like if you're stuck and it's not going the way you wanted it to be.
Mm.
So, I mean,
Also, I would say that the world is full of shady deals too, because if you put yourself out to the internet and say like, "Hey, I have no work," who's gonna come and take advantage of you? So
a
and
hundred
a lot of
percent,
I think most of the people have this image of composing that, oh, I just write music, and then that's it. My music will be played by an orchestra, but that's so further from the truth. Like that's like 200 years late. What
a
composing
hundred
actually is.
percent, a hundred percent. I mean, Um, I had one point that have written down. Let me see if I can find it. Like really fits well into that.
No worries.
Uh,
And anyone
um,
who's watching, like just reminding that like we are open for questions too. We will be yapping, but we'll be happy to answer your questions if you have anything. So just for context, both of us are professional composers. Both of us lived in LA. We did the whole Hollywood thing. And we both recently moved out of Hollywood because we wanted to build our own thing instead of building for somebody else. So feel free to shoot any questions. We're happy to answer them.
exactly. Yeah, we just founded the Bureau, which is basically our production music catalog on the one hand, custom music house on the other end, and also we just want to like basically help composers to achieve their dreams. This is a
Absolutely.
passion of mine for a long time now, and I finally found someone who wants to do the same thing in Thomas. So
We both were
um,
extremely lucky in that sense. We
yeah,
both kind of saw
100%.
how crazy the industry can be. I'm not going to give any names, but I used to work in like very top level in-house composer position in Hollywood, and I did that for years. And I saw how people are treated in the industry. I'm just going to say industry. I'm not going to give any specific names, but how people were treated in the industry in general. So that kind of gave me the example. Okay, like here are the things we need to do, but I don't want to repeat this work environments and how people are treated. So when I talked about this with Sebastian, he was aligned with this goal and mission immediate that we need to build something that is not based on shady practices or not being transparent. So
Yeah,
that's our mission. We are set on doing that, and I believe in it. Usually people say let's hope so, but I actually believe it's going to happen. So
right. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, I my so when I started out in Germany, or I started out in LA, but then moved back to Germany and worked there as an in-house composer as well for a big production house with especially one big campaign that they did, a worldwide advertising campaign, where I like basically for 2.5 years did the same music all over, again and again and again in different variations.
what a
But
crazy
through
good
that
gig.
time, yeah, um, through that time, obviously got to know a lot of composers like that came and went from that production house, and some came in just for jobs that came on top of what was already going on. We had TV series and all that stuff, like a really busy time. Um, but the thing is that most of these guys, they always wanted to make music, and it's their dream, and they're actually really good at it. But the thing that I don't know, and I was at that point for many times that I said, okay, I just let it be, and I work in a supermarket or in a bar, just to make ends meet and to be responsible for my family as well, right? I had
Mm.
one kid and then two, and now I have three. So yeah,
That's fun. That's interesting that you said that point. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like you just said
no, no,
so well that the thing that is very typical for Hollywood is that a lot of people when they start out, they actually Rick Beato made a video about that very recently when he said that the film scoring or being a musician nowadays is rich kids' hobby because they're the only one who can afford it. And actually, when I was working in a top company in Hollywood, what was really typical is a lot of the interns where from rich they could afford to just work free for 3 months, and anyone who didn't have that luxury, they had to actually they just couldn't like they had to work in a grocery shop or whatever, and they didn't have the same opportunity. That's very unfortunate part of this industry, and I feel like both of us, either through luck or like just being in the right place at the right time, we were introduced into production music, and that is the reason why we can do gigs whenever we want, because the production music basically pays our bills and basic living,
right.
so we can concentrate on very specific things to do. And I don't think a lot of musicians can even imagine like that kind of financial freedom, because we're taught that, oh, being a musician is hard. Obviously it's hard, and I'm not saying that our lives are not hard, but when you have your basic needs covered, then it's easier to concentrate on the things that really truly matter, like for example our mission. I don't think I would be thinking of this way if my basic needs were not covered.
100%. And I think that's one thing that's missing in the system. No one teaches you that kind of stuff, and through hardship and through like the things that we went through, we just, I don't know, we are at the point where we are now, and my dog is getting
Well, the dog agrees.
crazy. He says yes. Um, yeah, I mean, when my first check from production music arrived, like the first big check from production music, my whole demeanor, my whole life changed. I mean, it wasn't that big
Mm,
of a check in today's money, but still, it's like all of a sudden you can plan like 8 months ahead,
absolutely.
which I, with my jobs that I had or my projects that I did work for, could never do that. It was job finished, where's the next one? Because it was always
Exactly.
at the point when you were finished with the job, that money was already gone, basically.
And it's funny because if you look at the YouTube gurus, everyone is saying like you have to invest in assets. And when if you're a starting out musician, that seems such an abstract idea because like how can I afford stocks? I can't even like I can't buy a house. Especially in this market, my generation is struggling with that. So if you
Right.
tell them to buy assets, they're like, and I'm like, yeah, fuck you, man. Like that's not gonna happen, right? So if you're a musician and you actually write music that becomes the asset, then you solve two problems at once, which yeah, I don't think this should be taught in schools, but I don't think when you were in school and like or in any kind of educational institutes, I don't remember anyone being like, hey, you can actually live off production music. They said it's a thing that happens, but nobody was talking about it. Maybe it's just because the teachers just don't do it. Maybe that's it.
I mean, I did not go to music school, but my school was basically the time at this production house that I worked for, and they didn't even know about it, I think.
Wow.
So I mean, what they did, they came up in the 80s with their music, and back then money was no issue at all. They got paid like lots of money for creating music that at that time, like really high rates, very different than today. I mean, there's still these jobs and these projects, but
Mm,
then obviously advertising, and if you do it like a day, a commercial a day, this pays also nice dividends. It's basically the same thing, because if it's a good campaign, it lives on forever. And this is the whole thing about production music, that basically the track is created once and then lives on forever in that ecosystem, and people can use it and can
mm,
and every time it gets used on my end, and obviously there's sync placements and stuff like that where you can upfront money as well. But the back end is, I think, where it's accumulating. The more tracks you have, the more income you make, and
absolutely.
this is the fun part, is that I write a track in 2017, and this is a real example. Like it took me a couple of hours back then still, and this track to this day makes me 3,000 euros a year.
That's
I didn't
single
touch
track.
a single track. I didn't touch it. I did not rewrite it. There was no other like revision or anything. It's just living in that system, and I can pop up my TuneSet account and then see like, oh, it was played again 3 times today. And I'm like,
And you
this
didn't
is
have to compete for Spotify playlists, or you didn't have to
not at
pitch
all.
it, or if you think about it, it's really funny because if you look at how much money do you get from Spotify for like 1 million plays, I believe it's like between 400 euros to 4,000 euros
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
and that's really hard to cap to. But if your track is used in a TV campaign single time, that can generate that in a single use if it's a big campaign on a cable television network, for
So I
example. So
had like one campaign where I did the music for a commercial, um, and I got paid obviously a fee and upfront, and then this one little really like basic track, yeah, I mean made me like 20K in the back
wow.
end, right? So this is the power of like this accumulation, and that it's not about you having more time to make more tracks. Obviously, we come to that, but the track is the asset, or the library, like the catalog is the asset.
And then you don't have to apply for government grants like
No,
here in Europe,
exactly.
right? That seems to be the mindset that somehow composers have to apply for these government grants all of them. And instead, you could be funding your own career and make
Right,
sure that you have the money and assets to do whatever you
right.
want.
And I think I written down some rules that I like basically teach about or like tell you guys, that I think that are really that apply very much to that what we already said. And this was the point that you were making in the beginning, Thomas, is that the idea that you don't have to take just any project. You can pick and choose and what kind of freedom that generates. And I think the idea is that clients can smell desperation,
Yes.
and it costs you money in every single negotiation. And I live that, so I definitely know what I'm talking about. If you're sitting in front of the client, or even over the phone, I don't know, I can smell it over the phone. I have no idea how they do it, but they use that against you, that they feel in your voice or how you deliver your pitch, or how you like over explain, or how you like be over accommodating to them, that they say, yeah, but we only have that kind of budget. And
Yep.
and you have no, I mean,
Or even
I
worse, they have people who work for free. And then they say that, oh, we don't have a budget for music, but then
exposure.
they're paying everything else in the production. It's like if
Exactly.
you could afford a filming crew and you can't afford like a decent budget for music, what's going on?
So every production company, film production, movie, series, commercial production company that says we don't have budget for music, like run away,
Yep,
because it's just not true.
exactly. Trying
Um,
to cut costs.
right, and try to get the composer for free because they smell the desperation.
Mhm.
Um, so I lived this many times. I'm not sure about you, Thomas, like if this happened to you, but for me, it was like, if you need that money, it doesn't matter how much it is because you have to pay your rent. You are taking the hit.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, the other part is you don't even know how much you're worth in the first.
I agree.
So,
I remember when I moved to LA, my first 2 years was basically just freelancing on any gig I could get. Actually, through Fiverr, even I was in Fiverr, and I didn't have the passive income yet, so I was definitely just surviving from month to month and hoping, like, oh, let's hope this client accepts this $800 or $500 gig, so I can pay
yeah,
my half of my rent. And I remember it was very intensive time, and I feel sympathy for anyone who is in that situation. Of course, it's not the ideal. That's why we are here with Sebastian today to help people with this stuff, to educate and tell that there's opportunities for musicians to become financially free. Be
absolutely.
smart.
Be smart about it. Um, the thing is, why a lot of composers that I know, and maybe you're one of them, Thomas. I think you're definitely not anymore. I'm not sure if you have ever been. but you get this inheritance somehow of that. It's good to be a starving artist because then you keep being creative.
Oh yeah, like you're noble for not having the
For
resources.
whatever
Yeah.
sense, whatever reason. So, and I think this is something that we are so trained on. I'm not sure where this comes from. I'm sure that not everyone is like that, but I mean, probably I hung out with the wrong people, but it's just there are books about this, right? That it's good that you art and commerce don't go together and all that kind of stuff. And this
I
is
feel like
just
that's an interesting point, and I feel like it has to do with the fact that institutions used to be the gatekeepers of music, right? So before in the past, it was we had more free market economy when it came to even with music. But we think about Mozart; he was selling his own tickets, he was arranging all these gigs, he was being very active, and then we had the period of composers being sponsored by big kings and royals, and that also elevated this myth of like a star, like this genius artist like Beethoven. And since then, the institutions caught up with this artist brand and the idea of a lonely genius, and then it became composing became more of an institutionalized thing. And even I would say that after the market liberation of West truly happened after the World War II, and we have slowly become when once we have seen our institutions crumble a little bit and their authority crumble, we have seen that now we the democratization of media is so everybody has a phone, everybody can post whatever they do. So the institutions don't hold any power. That was already the case 10 years ago. Like we just showed with Sebastian. Like you didn't go to school, but you're more established composer than, let's say, 95% of people who graduate from school being a composer. Let's be
yeah.
real. So it's just the fact that the institutions don't hold the power anymore. And since institutions have been we have had to please the institutions, we are not taught the business skills. Because if you are in any other industry, let's say you're in business, your only people who you have to please are the clients, right? The market itself. So now, because we have the so many people wanting to do music, and the institutions and the music industry is dead, traditional music industry is dead, we all have to please the market. And since most of the people don't have the skills, they usually they go back to the institutions to teach, or
Right.
other options like that, which are not market based. So the income is very limited on what you can achieve. And that I think musicians are not told enough this, that but free market is a fantastic invention, because you can elevate yourself, you can learn skills, and you can make more money if you just work hard. I don't know at which point. What do you have? Do you have any thoughts about this? That when did we adopt this mindset in music that you can't make music, money in music, even though there's abundance of it?
I think it's just because it's hard to in any business to get to the point where it's hard in the term of like we might be good at music, but someone like Mozart who does sell his own tickets, I don't know any composer who even goes out there and plays a concert
Yes,
because they sit in their room all day long thinking, waiting for the call that they're now invited to Hollywood to be in that company or whatever, or like scoring that film. And I think why artists in general, I think, but also composers, obviously, they're part of it, musicians. First of all, I mean, we have to own our skills, right? We have to be really, really good. Then we have to have have the right opportunity as well, but we have to be ready for that opportunity to be able to succeed in that opportunity to get to the next level, so to say. And
absolutely.
most people I know are just not organized or willing enough to suffer for what they actually want to achieve, or they're not even clear of what they want to do.
Absolutely. Alex Hormos, he said really well. I remember there was one one thing he said that really
I wanted
stuck
to
with
say.
me a couple of years ago. He said that if you haven't tried something 100 times, you have no reason to complain because you
Exactly.
really don't have data. Once you have tried it 100 times, I've even I used to think sometimes I used to have this mindset like, oh, I can't do this, but once I tried it even 10 times, like, wow, I actually made it happen just because I
Hmm.
tried enough times. So
Right. Exactly. And interesting enough, Alex Hormozy also said this, that passion has nothing to do with joy. The passion of Christ, he did not go to the cross and it was fun for him. It has nothing to do with
yeah,
fun or
definitely not a fun
how,
trip.
no, how much you like it. It's how much you are willing to suffer to get to the point where you want to be.
Absolutely.
So if you're
Well said.
a passionate musician or a passionate composer, you better like get your seatbelts on and like ram through the walls and just do whatever you can to get to the point. Because other than that, you're not passionate enough. Passion has
I
nothing to
agree.
do with how much you like to do what you do.
Especially if you're in your 20s. I don't think a lot of people
Yeah.
understand it, but 20s is the only time in your life when you're out of school and you're young enough that no, it doesn't matter how many hours you work. Once you cross 30s, your body starts to fight against you if you don't sleep enough. But in the 20s, you have all the time in the world. And I think, especially for young men, I don't think we say this enough, but they should get their act together and just build their life. If you're a musician, build your life in the 20s and you can reap the benefits of that in your 30s.
Oh yeah.
This
Oh yeah.
goes
I
with
mean,
women too. This is not a gender thing, but I just think, especially young men nowadays, seem to struggle with meaning in life. So I want to give them that opportunity to build a life that they can be proud of in their 30s, you know?
and I was lucky enough in my 20s that I had like not the best role models, but I had some, and this like fired me up inside to build something myself. I did not know how, did not learn it from them how. But I think what stuck with me was like I want to build something similar to what they built, even though
Yes.
it crumbled in the end. But it's just good old hard work, and this is why most people think. And I think the myth around starving artists is just because they don't want to do the work that's necessary to do to get to a point where you're not starving anymore. It's easy to say,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, we are all starving artists. Um, you know how hard it is, and everyone agrees, right? And
Yes.
then people, and then they all want to be like Harry Gregson Williams or um,
John
Elliot
Williams.
John Williams. But I mean, they struggled, but they went through it, and they competed in the one of the hardest industries out there, and
Hmm.
are on top now. But when you're in your 20s, build. I mean, I would actually say this is really, really good what you said. Rather than like going after, go do both, I would say, but build something that is lasting and not just chase gigs and try to find the next indie video game where you can compose for free. I mean, it's good to
Yes.
practice, but build some. If you only do that, you will never get to a point you can then choose. You always have to never work for free anyway. I would not never
And
advocate
then
that.
there might be a situation when you get later in your life and then you see your friends who are doctors or lawyers and then they own multiple houses and then you're like thinking like, oh shit, like where did the time go? I didn't build stuff. And musicians, we have that opportunity, we can do that, but people just don't know.
Right,
It's such a shame.
right.
Very well said.
What's interesting is that I think for composers, we have this idea in mind what that looks like to be a composer for media. And
Yes.
most of people that I know want to be in that video game arena or films, TV series, not so much even anymore. Commercials, I don't know many that do that. And then trailer, everyone wants to do trailers.
Yes.
Um, the hardest industry you could ever choose is trailer, so never start there, I would
Yes.
say. um, but something like production music, like doing these little tiny tracks that don't take you long to create and build like 500 of them in your like when you're between 21 and 22, right? In 1 year, you can build that kind of catalog if you don't
Yes.
have anything else to do. Y- y- This will, like, when you're 27, you will have so many tracks in your catalog that generate revenue that you don't have to work anymore as long as
Yes.
you're alone. I 100% believe that.
And if you're a little burned out, you can take that year off then, and then
Right.
continue again in 28 or 29.
Right. And then obviously this is only one part, but what I always see is like, how do you actually, um, how much easier is it to do cool things or invite a director or producer or an editor or a some music executive that you want to work with for a nice dinner when you have money in the bank and don't have to beg him to give you money so you can pay your rent. The feeling that
Exactly.
like this switches the whole like conversation and the whole like mood and atmosphere between you. And if this executive sees that you don't need the money, it's much, 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 much more attractive. So I
Yes.
think this is where everyone that's in their 20s or 30s, doesn't matter, just should start that. And I regret, or I didn't know, that I only started this when I was in my 30s, mid 30s, actually.
But now you're
So
doing well, so it was
yeah,
definitely wasn't too late. So
no, and we're just getting started, right? It's just I stopped for a couple of years during the travel time, 2020, 2022, these times. Um, so yeah, there's a lot
that's
of
it's interesting because
room to
like
grow.
because when it comes to production music, there's so many lanes you can go to because, like Sebastian said really well, is that there is lane where you can do very simple stuff and that will pay the bills. And honestly, like that's most of the time when it pays bills. And then there's also the other route where you can do like funnily enough, I actually got a gig recently, like a triple A video game gig because of a production music track. And that was like one of the more laborsome ones where it's like two steps from hell style. If for anyone who doesn't know, it means like very epic, big orchestra, big drums, that kind of a feel. And they heard the track on Spotify and thought like, wow, we need to get this guy on this triple A gig.
Mhm.
That can happen too. And I remember I actually was sacrificing a lot of hours for that track. I spent 3 days for that track, recording the live strings and any kind of live instruments I had. And at the time, it felt like, why am I putting this effort? But it was the passion, like passion towards the
Mhm.
music. I wanted to put the effort, and I sincerely believe that whatever your passion is, like if you just put your mind set your mind to it, it will reap benefits. It might not happen in a month or 3 months, but it might happen in a year or two, like happened with that track, for example.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is probably more for some of the people that see this, that have already tracks placed in some in libraries or even have placements already. Um, that I want you to know that most of your catalog will never get placed.
That's true.
You make a lot of tracks that will never or not really get picked up. So my catalog is like 750 tracks or so, and 20% of the tracks make 80% of my royalties.
That's very
Um,
true.
but the thing is, hadn't I made the other 80% of tracks, I wouldn't be where I was now. The thing
Yep.
is, you never know which one picks up. It's a little bit of a gamble, but I'm not even saying that. I think every track gets a little bit of traction. So all these little royalty increments add up to what then is your yearly
Yes.
or quarterly check from the PRO. So yeah.
And since the shelf life of a track is usually around 10 years with the production music, sometimes they take off much later. For example, I know that Thomas Bergersen with the Two Steps from Hell tracks, it took him around, if I remember correctly, it was 6 years before his tracks became great hits. But for
Okay.
5 years, they didn't make any money. And then suddenly they took off. So
Mm-hmm.
you really don't know. Like I remember when I was working on that in-house composer position, I had those questions. I was asking, um, what kind of tracks should I make and should I follow a certain formula? Of course, there are certain rules on how to do production music, but the message that I got from the experience of 30 years from those people was that you never know. You have to be creative and keep reinventing because sometimes production music can totally surprise. But obviously, there is a method to the madness. Like you can just send a
Right.
cool demo or some random
Right.
music you've composed. You have to make it editorial. Editorial. I feel like that's one of the biggest misconceptions in production music and modern music nowadays is that we are still taught in schools how to think of in terms of rondo form and other forms of classical music, but but the true form nowadays is what editors think. So in chunks of 15, 30, and 60 seconds, that's the only thing that really matters nowadays, and it's hard for people to swallow that information sometimes.
And I think this doesn't even only pertain to production music. I think if you want to pitch a track to a director for a movie and it has like a 3 minute intro with like wind sounds, it's a skip. They will never go to the part where it's actually good or not good. So they will never hear your music because after 10 seconds they say, what is that? And then, unless it's a movie about wind, maybe. But
That would
this
be
is like
creative.
with our writers that work for us already. We see this sometimes that they have like these like they take a lot of time on the composition
To get to the
and
point,
then to get to the point, which is great. But this is Thomas what you said, and I totally agree. Is that we have to compose from the editor standpoint, and it also there. I mean, for film it's different, it's linear, but for something that sits in a library and has to appeal to as many people as possible, it makes total sense to say, okay, can I see something in my inner eye that where this track could be used for, and do I give the editor enough places where they can actually cut out easily, or can just take this one part in their edit points and all this stuff. So yeah, it's a little different game than just like composition that you learn in school, for sure.
But funnily enough, there is one piece of music that is very much licensed a lot in. There is classical music that plays this all the time, which is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, because it goes direct to this point. "Ya pa
Yeah.
pa pa." There it is. You know what the piece is going to be all about, and then it just
Yes.
develops.
Right.
It's funny. Like obviously Beethoven didn't compose it for that purpose, but it happens to align with the editorial needs too. So that's a great example where those two
That's great.
both align.
Absolutely, totally true. Yeah. So the point here is that, and I think this is also my next point, is that the first years, I would even say decade of your career is, and it doesn't matter if you go to school for an instrument or if you never went to school for music in any way, shape, or form. If you start your music journey, the first 10 years, I believe, are a tuition that you pay, even if you
Yes,
don't go to Berkeley. It doesn't matter. You pay the tuition
absolutely.
anyway. But I think, so from my perspective, I never went to school, so I'm biased. But so I was finished with college basically, and then, or high school or whatever you want to call it, in Germany. And they obviously we had like probably 1.5 hours of music education in school per week, which is like, and then we sang like alt choirs or something. So nothing that interested me. But then I was ready and finished, and then I wanted to do something with media music somehow. In Germany at that time, there was not really something that could accommodate me. It was
Right.
like jazz or classical music or an instrument, and I was not good enough for like drums, which was my instrument too, because a drummer position in an orchestra is like basically non-existent. So
Yes,
I
exactly.
decided against that, and it was just not where I wanted to go. And then I called. So I worked in an advertising agency as an intern, and the people that made music for a campaign, I got to know them through phone calls. And then when I was finished with my internship at this advertising agency, I called them up in LA and said, "Hey, do you take interns?" And he laughed at me really, really hard first. But then a couple of days later, they called back and said, "Yeah, if you pay everything yourself, you can come." So I
Wow.
packed my bags, went there. They had organized an apartment for me. It's another story. But anyway, I was there for 3 months the first time. And in that time, I got like, I applied beforehand in the UK for 3 schools. I got accepted in 2, but then I
Hmm.
came back from LA and said, I don't think I need someone to tell me what to do. I just need someone to
Yes,
show me what to do.
exactly.
And so
Very
I
well said.
basically, this was May in 2003. And then they called me like in June, I think, and said, hey, we have this new gig. This is the same company that had this big advertising gig. We need people. So they,
Wow.
for 3 years, worked for them. And this was my tuition for sure. I mean, I got paid, which is great, but a lot to learn. And I think I never could have learned any of that in
In school.
school.
Absolutely. I actually went to Berkeley myself, and I really I think the education was useful. I'm not downplaying it, but I definitely learned 90% of what I've learned after school, being in the industry in Hollywood and seeing how things actually work. And it's crazy how like you think you know what the industry is when you're in school. You're like, oh, this is what I'm preparing for. But when you actually are in the industry, like all the schools are about 10 years at least. Even like top schools are 10 years late. So it's crazy how fast the industry is developing. But I think that's just how markets work when you have a demand and you need creativity and innovation.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, was for me it was a great experience. I understand that people want to go to school, but I would rather get an internship
Especially
and
nowadays,
try. Yeah,
the
go
price
ahead.
of education is so crazy nowadays.
Yeah,
It's yeah, I think you said really well about that. Like finding someone who can show you things is probably more beneficial nowadays because you get a very specific skill, you pay for a very specific thing, and you don't have to take some liberal arts classes for no reason. Like
right.
what liberal arts classes do you need to do music besides music history? Like let's be real.
That's true. That's true. I think anyway, I think what we both learned in the industry is actually the business side of the whole
Yes.
industry. And that's something that every young student or every young composer that comes to me through Facebook or whatever, like they call me up, um, they ask how does this work, and I explain a little bit, and they just don't understand what I mean because they never thought about it as a business. And I think what
Yes.
actually is true is that you're as a composer, you're running a business. You're not just making art, and you have to see it that way. And I think you have to educate yourself really well on what it means to run a business, what a business consists of, and this also means that mm, um, at some point, I mean, you cannot do everything yourself, and as long as you're always bound by your own time, there's only so much time, right?
Yes,
And
you
it's
can
very,
only sell
very,
time. There's only 24 hours in a day. You can't sell more.
yeah. And if you work for 24 hours for 10 years every day, you're dead.
Yes,
It just doesn't work.
the math
And
doesn't
then
math.
then the creation of money or wealth is very much limited by your time, and then it's just not not good business practice. And I think you
Yes,
brought me to this point where we said, okay, we have to, some of the stuff that we do here, or most of it actually, we have to delegate.
outsource.
Yeah, because otherwise I'm just sitting behind my computer here and do like spreadsheets and write stuff and never get to the point to actually build what we want to build. And I think this is the book. What's the book called? The E-Myth Revisited. From working in your business to working on your business
Mhm.
is something that every composer needs to know. And I think I can really recommend this book to read that. And then every business has assets. When we're going back to that point again, and I thought of myself as an asset because I'm the guy who they call up to make their music. it's
Right.
actually a liability. It's actually a liability
Oh
because
yeah.
when I'm working at in the music, like I create the music, I cannot create a pipeline of new um, clients or
Yes.
prospects. If I'm sick, my um, revenue goes to zero. So I need basically someone that composes. And I know this is for me. It was really really hard to understand because they always wanted me,
Right.
which is flattering on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's completely it wrecks you because it's like every time there is something you have to jump, and you cannot. Um, I don't know. You
Achieve
there's
yourself.
no there's no out, and you cannot really build something around you if you always have to say what the clients have to do what the client says. So
Absolutely.
took me a long time to get to this point to understand this, but I think it's very important to see that you, at least for the administrative stuff and like the stuff that is not like I mean John Williams or these A-list composers, they compose themselves, some of them, most of them, not all of them,
Yes.
but they're still like the brand that the director wants. This is what they get paid for, I believe, more than anything
Absolutely.
else.
And it's a lot
Um,
of work to be the representing brand and taking all the hits and being the one with face with the business. It's not easy. People
yes,
think it's just no, no, no. It's not.
right.
It's interesting you said about the mindset difference because one of the things I've learned going like learning business skills throughout my life is that it actually forces you to grow in a very different way because when you're absorbed with art you only think about this is my viewpoint, this is how I want to express
Mm-hmm.
myself, my feelings. But when you're in business point you have to open up your mindset to other people. What do other people want to feel? How can I elevate their art? Also with negotiations, like obviously you're not there to go to work for free, but you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to the bigger problems you solve for the client, the better money you can get because you're solving higher up problems. Whole reason why people give you money is that you're solving a problem for them. Music is an emotional problem. They're trying to solve an emotional problem in their art, piece of art. You give that, the director is happy, um, the video game maker is going to be very happy that you solved their problem.
Mm-hmm.
and interestingly, a lot of the times the problem is just not the art. For example, when I'm working on a video game, it's how can with this budget that we're given, what is the most we can take out of this? Is it the creative organic system of creating more music in the game, or for example, is it like two tracks that generate multiple clips for the music to be used within game? And
Yes.
instead of for the game developer for paying 50 grand for 50 tracks, which makes the you work a lot for not a lot of money. If you make less music that can be recycled or made into smaller clips, then you save your time and everybody wins.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Um, there was something I wanted to say to that. What was that? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but
it's
I
like
totally the yeah learn just I don't know whoever is out there. I mean, I believe that it's also possible to do it alone. Uh,
yeah,
and the thing is, this is funny because I just get to this in my own mind that if you do production music, you can do it all your own
true.
because there's no pressure really. You can create like 2, 3, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week if you want. Maybe a little bit more when you're younger and have more time, and if the catalog is not as big yet. But if you really want a relaxed life and really make music still, um, this is a great path to choose.
That is true.
It's because there is no client really that like, is pissed when you don't deliver. It's just like, okay, the album's closed, you cannot deliver it anymore, more or less, right?
Yes.
Unless you get into a relationship with a publisher that says we want your album, then obviously you have to deliver. And don't get me wrong, it's still you have to deliver the stuff that you say. And this is, I mean, this should be clear anyway. But
But imagine like when you have like little kids during that time. Imagine if you have at that point you can choose not to work as much because you know that you have the kids. You can stay home, cash in the
Right.
checks, and then after the kids are, I don't know, they're not in that crucial stage anymore. Then you can keep working more. But at least you
And
have
this
a
is
little accommodation time.
exactly. And then the thing is, then you have all this accumulated like asset value, um, the catalog that is like 1,000 tracks, 1,500 tracks strong. And then you get back to when the kids are out of the house or whatever, or older or whatever, and you maybe want to go back in the game and like compose custom stuff. Guess what? You can just fly to LA and meet the people, or
Yes.
you don't have to take anything because it doesn't matter, and you don't have to take a day job to make your life to make this all happen. And
Yes, that's so
for me,
detrimental for people, the day
yeah,
job.
totally. I mean, in my beginning days, I did landscaping and like gardening and like sweeping floors and all that stuff just to keep the studio alive, just to
Yes.
pay the rent there. And guess what? I didn't have time to compose or even to like find any new clients. So it's like this cycle of like you have this job, you need this job to pay that studio, but you're never in the studio because you're always at the job. And when you have time in the studio, you don't have anything to do because there's no client, so you get out. So it's like this cycle of like
Yes.
misery where you
Yeah.
never get to the point.
I remember back in LA when I used to live there, there was a lot of violinists and especially violinists. I don't know why this is, but a lot of them who were playing wedding gigs and stuff, they at around 40s started being doing real estate because they just thought that there's not enough money in music or
Right.
they can't scale up. And I was just thinking like, wow, if you are a violin player, like you can play a live instrument that level, and if you just learn little production music skills, so you can produce your own tracks, you would be I think you would be rich in 10 years if you just like are consistent. And I don't think people understand that like most of the production music, anyone who's like haven't heard about this, we use samples, we use virtual instruments most of the time, and most of the production music that makes money is also made at. But if you have live instruments, I have seen in my own royalties that the payout is about 10 times higher. 10 times higher if you have live elements. And if you're like a string player, like I am, there's my cello, by the way, then like it's such a huge asset. I just wish that everyone who is studying classical violin, like the teachers would be like, hey, you should start doing production music now when you're young, because you you can record yourself. My God.
I
Oh,
mean, these days, if someone who plays an instrument really well does not get taught this or doesn't start it, if they get taught it, I'm just like I'm shaking my head because like then when you go in 45 and you want to buy real estate from the money that you made with gigs away from your family and like traveling all day long, which some people like, I do too, but not that much. Um, if you had started building in school that catalog, you
ugh.
wouldn't need to have to go into real estate, which is like a pain.
And
I mean, real
isn't
estate
the
is,
whole point of school? Sorry, I didn't
yeah, right.
interrupt. I was just saying, like, isn't the point of schools to make sure that the people who graduate make money out of music? They can live with it.
Sometimes I don't think they understand that in school, that you actually need to make money from that and not go to the next coffee shop and then take a job there
Ugh,
after paying like
exactly.
$100,000 in tuition or whatever.
And you're
So,
not too far off. That's actually how bad it
which is
is
which is
nowadays.
crazy, crazy to me. Yeah. So I mean, as you all can hear, it's like we are very much proponents to make it because I think it's just such a you make music already. Why not choose the downtime? Whenever you have time for an hour or two, sit down and let these little working sessions compound over several years. And I think this is a basic understanding of how compounding works, but every track
Yes.
is not, you do it once, it stays there for 7 to 10 years. If it gets picked up, you get money for 7 to 10 years from the track or even longer. And
Yes.
then the next track, you don't start from zero. because you have a relationship with a publisher already that sees that your tracks work, and what they figure what they want. They want tracks that work because then they make money too. So you go to them, hey, do you want another track? So you build and build and build, and every track compounds, and then they come to you, make a whole album. Then you can get introduced to new publishers, and it just builds and builds and builds. You will never be out of work because this kind of music is not going to be AI and music. This is a completely different discussion, but this is not going to be replaced in the next 10 years for sure. Legally alone, it's not possible. Not even talking about the quality. And if I think about I wanted to buy a real estate when I was in the US because everyone did like sub 2 financing and blah, blah, all this stuff. And I asked ChatGPT, is this a good idea if I have a catalog of 700 tracks that makes me such and such money, to now, instead of making more music, to invest my time into finding houses that I can buy.
Flip.
And ChatGPT said, in its kindest voice, you're such a, what did it say? You have so many good ideas or something like that, but I would stick with the music. Yeah. Because you don't have rent, you don't have any legal. The thing is, when the track is done, it's done. You don't have to see if they destroy the house. You don't have to look after contracts. There are no lawyers involved on your end. There's no obviously you have to create your own music and don't steal music, but
you're basically paying for the electricity, and it becomes an asset, digital asset that can be reprinted.
Exactly. Your brain, your heart, and electricity, you basically build an asset that's yours, right? And you don't have to pay lawyers or pay all this upfront, again, tuition to someone who teaches you how to do that. And then in the end, the thing is that they make it sound really, really appealing, but it's just, I tried this for a couple of years, and it's just the same as everyone else. You have to find clients.
And if you think of the profit margin there, if you think of real estate, it's around 5 to 7% per year. If you take the inflation off, same with the stock market. But if you build a catalog, okay, let's say that I have spent a lot of money on my plugins, and I calculate that the catalog ROI is huge. We're talking about hundreds of percents. And it's music. And why don't we talk about this? It's like saying, oh, if you look at the different investments, stocks are the best and gold is best. But no. It's usually the assets. If it's a digital asset that actually generates revenue, the return is much higher than any other industry.
And in this year, when you try to learn real estate, you create 500 tracks. You make more profit from that 1 year than from any assets you could ever accumulate through real estate.
Imagine if you own that in California and there's an earthquake and it destroys the house.
Exactly, gone. And then you have find renters and I don't know. It's just the spreadsheets alone make me dizzy. And with music, if you do it anyway already, it's such a straightforward way to build something for yourself. I mean, and you can go further, right? You can be your own publisher, and we don't talk about this yet, but this is it's just a crazy industry. I feel like it's totally underrated, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see many people talk about it.
No, I absolutely agree. And the cool thing is that we're actually catching, because the traditional music industry died about 10 years ago with the Napster and everything. That's when the record companies lost and then social media came up and gave everybody a chance to promote their music on democratic platform, basically, with algorithms. So what we're seeing is that the same music that used to be that people bought they bought CDs, and that's where the master royalties came. Master royalties are sold with when you buy a physical copy of CD. Nobody buys CDs anymore. So that transferred to streaming platforms. But what is happening now, which is really interesting and beautiful in our industry, is that the same music that we might use for TV, which is called the performance side of royalties, if we use the same master royalties and that same music plays on TikTok, or Instagram that can generate double revenue in that
Mm-hmm.
case. And I think that's fantastic because it just gives musicians even more power to make money from
That's crazy.
their home
Yeah.
studio.
Right.
I know a guy from Finland who lives in the middle of Finland. He never went to school, knows nothing, but he only concentrates on putting music on TikTok, and I think he makes like 300 grand a year from so, and he lives nowhere
That's
in Finland. Nobody
incredible.
knows him.
Yeah. And
So
making 300K, I mean, this is obviously like a great example, but making 300K a year from an asset that you built yourself, tell this to a real estate investor, they like fall off the chair because they never make the kind
exactly.
of profit from something that they own, right? They have to sell
Yes.
it, then they make the profit, but they didn't
And
start
leverage
investing.
heavily especially to build that kind of a catalog in that
Right,
time. Like in 10 years, what can you build with just writing music versus if you have to buy a property, you risk it, you might over leverage or
right.
so
I mean, stop.
crazy.
I still would not put all my eggs in one basket, but since you're already that creative and already know how the music is done, just what does it? Why not just do that, right?
Why not
It's
believe in yourself and invest in yourself?
exactly invest in yourself, and invest in yourself doesn't mean buy a new pair of Gucci jeans or whatever.
Or a
Invest in yourself.
new day
Oh,
trading course.
day trading course exactly for 10 grand. Exactly. Yeah, I think the shiny objects are everywhere, but I think, yeah, I would hide. I mean, I'm telling you now, if you're 20, and I'm telling you now about this, don't let this opportunity pass. No one
Yes.
told me when I was 20. I worked my behind off for 15 years until I came around and someone told me about this. Was screwed over a couple of times by publishers like with I retained probably 15% of my rights, American publisher.
Wow.
Like all of a sudden I had like 4 co-writers and I'm like, oh,
Where did these people come from, right?
yeah, I don't know. To one of them I talked on email, it seems like, but I don't know. But then I found some really, really nice publishers, and still, this is the fun part. Most of them I co-create the music with someone, and then it's still enough, more than enough to pay all my bills.
Yes.
And yeah, the math is very interesting around that. So I just give it I mean, you have to give it 2 years.
To see some results. That's a good point. Is people usually quit before because they think like, oh, I haven't received anything 2 years. But that's how it takes for the system to recognize there's a new rider and the royalties to
Right.
come. And once they hit you, like, oh shit, like there's 10 years of passive income from this track that I created in my bedroom. Pretty crazy.
I can tell you that the moment when I received this check, it was life changing, and you will get to this point as well. If you start and consistently, you don't set a goal. You want to have these many tracks in 10 years because this is hard to get your head around. Just create yourself a system where you say every day for 1 hour I work on that catalog, and I promise you, in 2 years you look back and say, oh, where did these 300 tracks come from?
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, oh, where does this check come from? And then all of a sudden you make more tracks, and then it gets more and more and more. And this is how it worked for us. This is not just like theory, kind of like us, like it actually happened to me and to you as well, Thomas. There's like all of a sudden there's this money coming to my account, and I'm like, that's crazy.
Yes.
Something
And I don't have to suffer.
exactly. I can, for the first time in my whole career, like be relaxed for a moment. Yeah.
What a privilege.
What a
What a
privilege.
great way. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
we are doing this workshop in 2 weeks.
That's
13
true.
days.
It's June 18th.
Yeah, where we go much deeper into like the mechanics of how we made it to the point where we are now. It's completely free. I have a link in the description where you can register for the workshop. it's basically the whole system that both of us built independently, and then also we combine these systems to show you like different paths of how to choose the right partners, like publishers, like the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly system on how to get to the point that actually the money comes in, and how to actually monetize the tracks the best. Thomas touched on this a little bit with possibilities on mechanical rights on Instagram or TikTok or on Spotify as well. So all these like tiny little details, we go really deep on this 90 minutes. Bring your questions as well if you register. We will answer some questions. And yeah, this is, if you like this, you will love this workshop.
Yeah, I think it's gonna blow your minds, because there's so many misconceptions that people have about music and making money in music, that they just don't realize that there is money for grabs. I just want to give people the chance to understand it, because I went to school. I went to a top school in the world for this stuff, and even they didn't teach this properly. So who is exactly? So,
and as we said, it's not theory. It's just like our system that actually got us where we are now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, man. Okay, thank you everyone for watching, especially in the future.
Yes.
So June 18th at 7 p.m. Was it? No, 6 p.m. Sorry, 6 p.m. Central European time. The workshop. Register, and we will see you on the next live stream.
Yes. Thanks, Sebastian, for talking. It's always a pleasure talking with you, man.
Pleasure, my friend.